Hello and welcome to another ranking of top PvP players. In these videos we look at the most active players in solo PvP, faction warfare and in frigates and destroyers. And this is the video for June 2026. So as far as I can see, quite a bit of a lower activity compared to May. As far as I remember, in May we had well over 250 solo kills for the number one. Now it's only 154. I guess people touch grass a bit more during the summer. And there are a few familiar faces as well. So Clive, the number two, was the number one in May list. GroZZZa, Lucian are quite active players in Caldari Galenti Warzone. Jim Raynot, I suppose, is the alt of Jim Raynor. This is a fairly famous, like very experienced solo PvP player in Marmin Matar Warzone. Yeah, it will be interesting to check out their profiles. Okay, but let's start with a number one profile. Let's go to the Z kill. Alright, so this is the Z kill profile for the number one player in June, Tom Shelby first. Again, I see a bit of a pattern. This is a relatively new character and does quite a lot of solo PvP. Suppose this is a bit more common than I expected. So like specialized characters for faction warfare. Yeah, 389 kills in June. So out of this, 154 in frigates and destroyers and solo. Let's see what he flies. Slicers, executioners, navy crucifiers. Okay, this will be quite interesting to look at these feats. And it's a Mamake. Okay. Okay, let's look at his feats. Executioners, retributions, navy crucifiers, slicers. I suppose this should all be like a kiting, laser kiting stuff. Yeah, it is laser kiting stuff. This one, can't remember actually what kind of feat is recommended in the yearbook for executioner. I think it's a web kiter. This one is quite interesting. Yeah, I don't think this one is in the yearbook. The idea is, I agree with the idea. So currently attack Tech 1 frigates are probably the best choice if you want to fly Tech 1. Because you can kite in almost all of them quite effectively. And if you can cram a tracking disruptor as well, then you essentially counter all destroyers. They cannot catch you on a warping and they cannot apply to you even if we are long range fitted. So, and in this case it immediately becomes a pretty attractive proposition because you fly like an 8 to 9 million Tech 1 frigate. And you have all of the Navy destroyers in your engagement profile, which makes perfect sense. Yeah, this is an interesting fit. I will need to look at it in a bit more detail later on. My concern is probably about the cap. With a tracking disruptor on. Obviously you cannot repair during the fight, it's like more like on a slicer repair in between fights. But yeah, it makes sense. And this one I suppose is the same. Yeah, this one is the same. Slicers. Okay, this is standard beam slicer. What does this window? Oh, it's a cup rig. Yeah, not sure about the cup rig. I think it's not quite optimized. But of course on beam slicers you are really suffering for cup. So maybe it makes sense. But other than that, this is a standard fit. Let's look at some other slicers. Okay, same. Same, okay. Retribution. Okay, this is completely standard. Yep, this is completely standard. Crucifiers. This is also looks pretty standard. I don't really like pulses on scrum range frigates because I think both close range and scrum range DPS is really lacking. I would rather, if you want a scrum kite, I would rather go with beams. But yeah, this also makes perfect sense. This one, same, but this is probably specifically against like a anti-cruiser fit to break tracking. This one, okay, same. Tormentors. Okay, kite tormentors. Okay, this is also interesting. I don't really have an opinion about kite tormentors. I think if you wanna kite in a Tech 1 frigate, in an Amar Tech 1 frigate, Executioner is just better. And you are not really getting any additional surprise value out of Tormentor, because people will generally assume that Executioner is not a kiting frigate either. And in this case, it's just better to go with Executioner. But again, this is an interesting idea. It's not recommended in the yearbook as well. But this is maybe something I can look at in the next edition. But again, the issue that I have is that here you don't have a tracking disruptor. So what's your engagement profile ultimately? With Executioner, you can fit a tracking disruptor and then you add the destroyers in the engagement profile. But with this guy, what are you going to fight? Like close range destroyers probably, and afterburning frigates. But you can fight this in an Executioner as well. So it just feels like it's just a worse version of the same idea to me. Same price, but smaller engagement profile. Okay, yeah, and I think we... Okay, let's look at the Firetail as well. Yeah, this makes sense as well. I think I used it as well. Very similar fit. So effectively, if you go with medium shield extender on the Firetail when you are generally trying to brawl, and when Newt is one of your key win conditions, because you can perma around your Newt, and your speed and control is pretty reasonable. So you just get close, and when you generally have enough hit points to make your Newt work, and when and when it's a pretty decent combination of tank DPS when you apply Newton pressure. So yeah, this fit makes sense. If you go with a more control oriented fit, when I don't think you will need a nude because you will be leaning towards scrum kiting overall. Okay, let's look at one more. Yeah, it's the same. Okay, yeah, it's a pretty interesting profile. Quite a few slightly off meta choices, but I think all the feeds that I saw make a lot of sense. And some of them are not what you see every day in faction warfare. So this is something that you can pick up for your own PvP. Okay, let's look at in our profile. Alright, I skipped number 2 because we looked at Claire's profile in May. So I went for number 3, GroZZZa. This guy I know quite well. He flies in, well, at least he used to fly in Galente, Caldari, Warzone, and he was exclusively and fairly cookie cutter Navy Catalysts. I think even I have a video in Iron Man where I almost killed his Navy Catalyst in like an Tech 1 fitted Newt Tristan. Yeah, but almost doesn't count, of course. Let's see what he's up to. Okay, a Navy Catalyst, so same thing. So Gerento. Yeah, so it's the same thing. Most likely this will be a fairly short profile review because he flies one ship and essentially one feat as far as I'm aware. Interesting. 10 blasters, this is something new. Usually this feat goes with a micro warp drive and a Nosferatu. And the rest is kind of similar. Huh, interesting. I guess it kind of makes sense. You do not really sacrifice the tank in this case. Yeah, neutrons as well. Yeah, it's an interesting idea. But you get quite a bit better control for scrum range fights when you do with micro warp drives. Yeah, and against kiters, well, if a kiter catches a blast and a catalyst, when you're dead anyway. It doesn't really matter if you have a micro warp drive or a tenement. Okay, let's look at a few more. Ah, it's also tenement. Huh. I guess the downside is that you have to drop Nosferatu. But on the other hand, if you're fighting against like a heavy Newton pressure, against like a Newton Tristan or something like this, you will... maybe you will not. Yeah, you probably will not be able to... Well, against Newton Tristan you will be able to burn away from the Newton range because Tristan does not have a web. Yeah, like you don't really need Nosferatu that often for Navy Catalyst, so I can see that this trade-off makes sense. This was same, yeah. Let's look at one more. Yeah, it's the same. It's a kind of I can kind of see this idea. It's again, it's a pretty interesting idea, I think. Yeah, like if you just sit in complexes when the majority of people that come in will look to fight you at scrum range probably, or kite you. And in this case, especially for scrum range fights, Tenement gives you a much better control in scrum range. This is probably equivalent to afterburn a single web frigate. So yeah, it kind of makes sense. Yeah, it's an interesting idea. I actually never thought but you can fit 10 MN on a blaster Navy Catalyst. I always thought about 10 MN as a web kiting tool with like rails or something. Okay, yeah, so there is not much else to look at. This is the same fit and the same ship, but the idea, I guess, it makes sense. Let's look at the next person in the ranking list. Alright, the number 4 is Lucian. Lucian is well-known pilot in Galentia Caldari Warzone. He usually flies Blast Macro Warp Drive Comets. Let's see what he is up to these days. Yep, Comets and Galentia Caldari Warzone, yeah, so all the usual stuff. This is probably gonna be a very short profile review as well, because he essentially flies the same ship and the same fit all the time. Let's look at this. Yep, this is the basic fit that he uses. So Macro Warp Drive, Blaster Comet. So you can think, well, this is kind of not very optimal for 1v1, because your control will be just terrible. True, but the idea is you're not actually looking necessarily for 1v1s, or at least in like a typical 1v1 sense where you would fight against like hookbills or firetails or whatever. What you do in this feat is you're looking for a good opportunity. So you can enter almost any complex that's occupied by several other ships. It's quite difficult to catch the comet on a warping macro drive comet, because you have almost like a kiting level speeds in this one. You can just circle around some ongoing fights, again because of your mobility, and when you just look for like stragglers, people who were involved in 1v1, and once the fight is over you just finish off a survivor, and so on and so forth. So this is sort of like strategy that many years ago Nulsec Ottaviani did. Like in a strict 1v1 sense, your ship is not that great, but it's pretty good at finding opportunities to finish off some weaker strugglers. And you can see that as I'm scrolling, there are not many solo losses. Yeah, like a lot of, well, not a lot, but a decent share of losses are not 1v1s. It's because generally, at least back in the day when I used to encounter him quite a lot, he's not really looking for like 1v1. If you are sitting in a complex in a hookbill, he's never going to enter. Which is reasonable, because hookbill will just kill you. Yeah, so 1v1s like this is in the target profile. So killing a kiter, for example. When the kiter expects you to be a brawling point, yeah, it's again trying to kill a kiter. This would be a 1v1 that he takes. Another kiter. This one. Yeah, this must be some story behind it, because of course you are not really willing to engage a thrasher in a macro warp drive comet. This one. Yeah, this is probably maybe like some fall of kiting wolf or something like this. Yeah, so essentially you're okay with fighting a 1v1, but against ships you counter. So against like a kiter, you don't mind fighting a 1v1. But against normal scrum range frigates, you just don't engage and you wait for a better opportunity. Yeah, again kiter. You can basically see the trajectory and the idea. And fits are always the same. Okay. Maybe let's look at one last profile. Alright, final profile for today. Jim Raynot. I don't know Jim Raynot. I know Jim Raynor. I wonder if it's an alt or is it just a fairly rare coincidence. I wonder where Jim Raynor these days. Jim Raynor. And this is the guy. He is inactive. And actually this character is younger than Jim Raynot, so maybe this is just a coincidence. And this is a 2008 character. Really old one. Okay, let's see what he is up to. Tristan Tormentor. And a Mamake. Okay. Let's look at his Tristans. This is interesting. Yeah, but I don't think it works. Like, web kiting with Tristan is not gonna work because it is, I think now after they buffed Merlin, is like the slowest Tech 1 frigate in the game. So any other Tech 1 frigate will have control. And it's not like your tank and DPS is particularly amazing. What else? Tormentors. Dual rep Tormentors. This is some kind of a meme feat. Yeah, I don't think it realistically works as well. Because your control is so bad and your tracking is not that amazing with pulses either. And your tank is not really that great to kind of go head to head against many brawlers. What else? Yeah, this one is more standard. But I think, again, I think I mentioned it earlier in the video, pulses are just not great in the current meta. Because if you Scrum Kite, you have to use Scorch and your DPS is bad compared to other options like rockets or beams or rails. And if you have to brawl, then your DPS is not great either compared to brawling alternatives like blasters. So you are kind of not doing anything well enough. But if it makes sense, it's just kind of, yeah. Yeah, like this one makes more sense to me. A web kiting and tormentor. We typically fit it as Scrum Kiter, but web kiter kind of makes sense as well. I would use Executioner for this role, to be honest. Because you need control more than you need tank in these roles. And with Executioner you just get more control. Navy Crucifier. Yeah, this is supposedly some kind of a counter against some bigger ship, which probably went slightly wrong. What else do we have? Tristan. Yeah, this is another weird web kiting Tristan. This looks kind of normal. Actually a bit surprised that I see so many Navy Crucifiers. I guess these are kind of an idea used to fight, to counter cruisers. But you don't really need bonus tracking disruptor to break cruiser tracking, to be honest. All you need is Afterburner and the web and the Scrum, like these three modules. And then you just click Orbit 500, kill all the drones, and very few cruisers can actually track you in this case. You don't even need tracking disruptor. Let alone bonus tracking disruptor. So basically any ship with these 4 medium slots will be able to mitigate fully in Scrum range against any cruiser. Well, with the exception of like rapid light missile launchers or something like this. The bigger problem that you have when fighting a cruiser is a medium newt. It generally comes down to if you are fighting in close range, does the cruiser have a newt or not? Or alternatively, cruiser might have like a bunch of drones like a Vexor. In this case, it's also quite difficult. Okay, Navi Malus, this is interesting. Okay, so this is like usual Scrum Kiter. Yeah, I think it's a post buff as well, 25th of June. Yeah, I didn't test it after the buff, but I still feel like it's just, this ship is just not good enough, even after the recent buff. The speed is just so bad, and the DPS is just not there. Yeah. Those do we have Merlins? This is standard. And the same. Well, it's not standard because you wouldn't really fit Tech 2 rigs on a Tech 1 frigate because you will just like double your price. Yeah, like more than double your price. Yeah, with Merlin I have the same idea, the same opinion. They buffed it recently, they added some top speed, but I feel like it's not quite there yet as well, compared to Incursus, which is the same role. Yeah, this is some meme tormentors. Yeah. Yeah, you can see the problem. Even Rifters can kill it. Yeah, I don't really like this. Like, let's just sit here and tank sheets, like double rep and curses, or double rep anything without a web. Like, how are you going to kill anything? Because you don't have a control to keep your opponent in scrum range. Even if you permatank him, okay, well, I will just click align out and warp off. What are you going to do about it without a web? Yeah, it's the same. Okay, maybe like one or two more bits. Okay, Rifters, this is interesting. Okay, this is the same like meme feats with double reps. Yeah, so the biggest problem is this, you don't have a web. So even if you somehow tank your opponent, okay, I will just align out and warp off. Nothing you can do about it without a web. There are many frigates with 4 medium slots that you can fit like this, but the opinion is always the same. Control is more important when you're tank DPS in these frigate fights. Okay, I think this is enough. This video is probably like half an hour already. Yeah, hope you found it useful. I picked up a couple of interesting feats to think about as well. And I will see you somewhere around like mid-August or maybe a bit earlier for the July ranking. Alright, thanks for watching. Bye bye.